Good morning, everybody. I think we're assembled, and I think we're probably ready to get going. From a Open Record Counsel, are we logistically ready to go in terms of recording the meeting and things like that?
Including the people online, I think you have a quorum. Recording is going.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, then, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the November meeting of the Advisory Committee on Open Government. I want to welcome both the members participating in person as well as those online. Members of the public who are here in person, thank you for your attendance and your interest, as well as to those of you online. And I'd also like to thank the staff of the Comptroller's Office for hosting this meeting and just making sure we're all organized. As those of you who attended or viewed in August saw, the plan was to have this meeting at another location to move it around. When I was looking into that, however, I developed two questions. The first one is a legal question, which is namely, are we authorized to do it somewhere else? And the second one becomes a logistical question, which is, are we going to be able to comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements regarding video recording, participation, posting, etc., if we go somewhere else? Those items are later on the agenda, and we've got a member from the Attorney General's office here to advise us on that. And so we'll get into that in detail later. But right now, I just wanted to let you know why we're here as opposed to somewhere else as an initial thing. So, in the meantime, though, I would like to call us to order and ask Secretary Wilkerson to please call the roll.
This meeting involves both members participating electronically and members that are participating in person. A member participating electronically must be able to answer two questions for the record. First, can the member simultaneously hear and speak with others that are participating in the meeting? Second, is the member alone in the room? If the answer to both of these questions is yes, the member can simply answer yes to both questions. A member who is not alone should also identify the other person that is present in the room with that member. The members who are participating here today in person not need answer the two questions, but simply should just indicate their presence. So if members would please respond when I call your name. Ambassador Victor Ashe.
Ambassador Ashe, I see your mouth moving, but we don't hear you. It looks like you might be muted. My eyes can't see that far, but that's what I'm being told. All right, why don't we come back to you at the end?
Okay, myself, Jennifer Wilkerson, representative of County Officials Associations, present. Chris Voss. Alicia Hodge.
Yes and yes.
Dr. Lee Carter.
Tennessee School Board Association here.
Thank you. Tanisha Hawley, League of Women's Voters. Co-Chair Brian Lapps from the Tennessee Board of Regents.
I'm here.
Chief Sammy Williams, Tennessee Association of Chiefs of Police. Dick Williams from Common Cause. Jonathan Smith from Tennessee Hospital Association. Dan Haskell from Tennessee Association of Broadcasters.
Here.
Dr. Karen Jackson from AARP.
Yes and yes.
Joel Christopher from Society of Professional Journalists.
Present.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris from Tennessee Sheriff's Association.
Here.
Our ex officio members, Lauren Lambert for the Attorney General's Office.
Here.
Senator Richard Briggs, the chair of the Senate State and Local Government Committee. And Representative John Crawford from the House State and Local Government Committee. Mr. Chairman, that completes the roll call. You have 10 and present.
Great. So we've got a quorum. Let's return to Ambassador Ash. Yeah. All right, can you hear? Give us a thumbs up, please, if you can hear us, because we can't hear you. Ambassador Ash, we still cannot hear you. Can you please indicate to us with a thumbs up if you can hear us? Okay, you can hear us, but we still can't hear you. Is there a way for you to just call in on a landline? You don't necessarily need to participate by video conference if you can just call in to hopefully the link you received by another means.
Chairman, we can mute participants, but we can't unmute participants.
Thank you. Okay, well, since we have a quorum, we will just go ahead and participate. We'll just go forward. And Ambassador Ash, if you can make yourself heard at some point later, please just interrupt the proceedings or interject at an opportune moment and let us know you're there. Okay. The next item of business is to talk about the actions that we did on August 25, 2025, which is the election of the co-chairs. I wasn't quite prepared to be co-chair. I'm better prepared today, and one of the things I did to prepare today was to reflect on what I did or didn't do right last time. One of the things I did not do right last time was to hold roll call votes on everything. Because we have members participating remotely, we need to have a roll call vote on everything. So that would include making sure that we have elected chairs, the co-chairs, correctly. Now, prior to this meeting, it was pointed out to me that we may not have the appropriate diversity of representation on the co-chairs because Tennessee Code Annotated 8-4-603 basically says one person should come from government and one person should come from the private sector to be the co-chairs. If you then reference back to 602, we have one member from the Tennessee Municipal League who is appointed, comes from item C, and that counts as a government entity in what I was just reading, and one person from J, that's me, the Tennessee Board of Regents, which is another government entity. So it looks like we can't have a C and a J as co-chairs. We need somebody who comes from the other sector as a co-chair. So what I propose to do, does General Lamberth, or do you agree with that reading of it, or does anybody disagree with that reading of it? That both Alyssa Hodge and I can't be co-chairs at the same time.
I agree with that. I read it also.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hodge.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move that we reconsider our action in electing. Thank you. I move that we reconsider our action in electing Ms. Hodge as co-chair. And my logic for naming her is that you were already elected from the public sector when she was elected. I went back and to the extent that that's what's reflected in the minutes. And I would therefore move that we reconsider our election of her because it's not, wasn't legal for us to do that.
We can have some discussion, but is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Now, first point of discussion, I didn't, really seek this role. I was put in this role. I'm happy to serve in this role. And I'm prepared for this meeting because we don't have any staff. It's, Ms. Hodge and I did not co-prepare for things that we were going to be voting on because we wanted to comply with the Open Meetings Act. So I've done most of the work. And Ms. Hodge, if you really want to be in charge, please speak up. I'm happy to do it because I'm going to roll off next year. And all right.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
You go right ahead.
Okay. Is there any other discussion then?
Do you want to call out the organizations from which we do need to?
Well, I
Yeah.
think the motion was to appoint me as co-chair. What was, Mr. Haskell, can you restate the motion?
The motion would be to reconsider our action in electing Ms. Hodge as co-chair.
Okay.
So I think you're stuck. We're looking for the second.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Okay. All right. So what we're doing then is looking for somebody who represents one of the following: the Tennessee Coalition for Open Government, or the Tennessee Press Association, or Common Cause, or the League of Women Voters, or the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, or the Society of Professional Journalists, or the American Association of Retired People. Does anybody have a nomination for anybody from those? Let me first ask, if you're from one of those, please raise your hand. All right, we've got Ms. Jackson, Mr. Walker, Mr. Haskell, and I'm sorry, Joel, Christopher. Okay. All right. Do we have any nominations from among those individuals?
Do we need to resolve the motion that was made before we?
You're right. Let's all vote. Let's all have a roll call vote on that. Thank you.
All right, so we are voting on the motion to reconsider the election of Ms. Hodge as co-chair. We had a second on that motion, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Ambassador Victor Ash,
His thumb is up.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's legal or not. If he can't speak, is he able to? All right, we'll just mark a thumbs up and put an asterisk by that.
Okay.
How about?
all right, Jennifer Wilkerson from the County Officials Association, I'm a yes. Chris Voss. Alicia Hodge,
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter,
Yes.
Tanisha Hawley, Chairman Brian Lapps,
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent, Dick Williams,
He's absent as well.
Jonathan Smith,
He's absent as well.
Dan Haskell,
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson,
Can you all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm on the phone,
All right, great.
and my answer yes.
Wonderful.
The only
Okay.
people I could see there are Joel Christopher and Deborah Fisher.
That's just what the video is at the moment. Apparently it rotates.
So what I do,
Yeah, just
you
stay
can see my elderly picture,
Yeah, we can see you.
and I can speak through the phone.
Yes. So you are participating in real time and you are alone in the room, and that's great. But because of the echoes, when you're not speaking, please mute yourself.
Now, if someone like my wife comes in the room, do I need to let you know that?
Yes.
I'm in my study, and she often walks through.
But if she just walks through and passes through, I don't think you need to do that. But if she's going to spend any time there, please let us know.
No, she has no interest in this meeting. No offense.
Then you're complying with the spirit of the law, because I understand the spirit of the law to make sure that nobody's whispering in your ear. So, okay, if you could please mute yourself, because there's reverberation and
I don't know how to mute myself.
Just on the phone? Is there a mute button on your phone?
I'm on the phone right now.
Oh, you're on a landline phone, not a cell phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could just move the phone away, could you mute?
I'll move it away and,
Okay, what about muting?
and won't hold it.
Can you mute?
I hope you can figure out how to do a Zoom meeting. This team thing is crazy.
Can you mute your, can you mute the speakers coming out of the computer? Is there a way to do that? That might help with the reverberation. Or turn the volume down.
I don't know how to do either one.
Okay. All right. We will endeavor to persevere. All right. Could you
Would you like
please finish calling the motion?
Okay. I had Dr. Karen Jackson what was your vote?
Yes, I was voting.
Thank you. Joel Christopher,
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris,
Yes.
Lauren Lambert,
Yes.
and we have Senator Briggs and Representative Crawford absent.
So,
The motion carries.
all right, great. So then the next order of business is
And you counted me and also for being present.
correct. All right. So the next order of business will be to elect a co-chair from among the groups I mentioned and the people who raised their hands. So, are there any nominations for volunteers?
Well, I'm willing to do it, but I'm not a candidate unless you all down to no one. But I'm a private citizen.
Right. I saw Robert Walker has raised his hand,
Who does he represent?
Well, I'll be for him.
and Robert Walker is. I'm not seeing a name. Okay, you're not. Thank you, Mr. Walker, but you're just a member of the public, it would appear. Is that correct?
And chairman, as a representative of the Society of Professional Journalists, I would certainly consider doing it.
Okay.
I'll nominate.
I'll say.
I'll second it and call for the question.
Okay. As soon as you're ready, Madam Secretary, is there any discussion? Well, you've called for the question without objection, I guess. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion,
Moment of discussion. When do you roll off? Do you know?
I confess I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's in 2 years.
I roll off next year, so it'd be nice if we have some continuity.
How long are the terms?
3 years.
I thought they were 4 years.
You're coming from category M, which is the Society of Professional Journalists. You're 4 years.
4 years, okay. And with an end date of what?
An end state?
Yes.
I'm assuming it's calendar years.
Yeah, it should be on the website of when people expire.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Is it possible to put our emails on the website so if people want to communicate with us, they could? I don't mind personally putting mine on.
We can talk about that next, but let's go ahead and have this election. Okay. So as soon as you're ready, Ms. Wilkerson, please take the vote.
All right, so we are now taking a vote for Joel Christopher to be nominated as the co-chair, if you will. I'm calling the roll. Ambassador Victor Ash.
Yes.
I'm Jennifer Wilkerson. My vote is yes. I believe Chris Voss is absent. Is that correct? Alicia Hodge.
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter.
Yes.
I believe Tanisha Hawley is absent. Brian Lapps.
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent. Dick Williams is absent. Jonathan Smith is absent. Dan Haskell.
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson.
Could you restate what organization he's with? Mr. Joe Christopher?
The Society of Professional Journalists.
Okay, I vote yes.
Mr. Joel Christopher,
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris,
Yes.
Lauren Lamberth.
Yes.
And then Senator Richard Briggs and Representative John Crawford are absent. Sir, we have 10 yeses, no, 0 nos.
All right, great. My original plan, so the motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Christopher, Co-Chair Christopher.
Thank you.
My original plan was to call for confirmation. Have I been valid? Am I validly a co-chair, or or is that implicit, or does anybody think we need to re-elect me? Since it's pretty clear I've been re-elected in my mind.
You got elected once, isn't that enough?
But we didn't do a roll call.
I think just to have it on the record.
Let's just do a roll. All right. Is there a motion to confirm my election as co-chair?
I'll make
Yes.
the motion.
Discussion?
Off the question.
All right. As soon as you're ready, please call the roll.
All right, we are calling the roll for the motion to elect Brian Lapps as chair. Ambassador Victor Ashe.
Yes.
Jennifer Wilkerson, my vote yes. Chris Voss is absent. Alicia Hodge.
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter.
Yes.
Tanisha Hawley is absent. Brian Lapps.
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent. Dick Williams is absent. Jonathan Smith is absent. Mr. Dan Haskell.
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson.
Yes.
Joel Christopher.
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris.
Yes.
Lauren Lamberth.
Yes.
Senator Richard Briggs and Representative John Crawford are absent. We have 10 yeses with 0 nos.
So the motion carries. Next, we'll need to confirm the election of Jennifer Wilkerson as secretary. Do I have a motion?
I move to confirm the nomination of Jennifer Wilkerson as secretary.
I'll second.
Off the question.
And would you please call the roll? Wilkerson?
All right, now we're calling the roll for motion to elect Jennifer Wilkerson as secretary. Ambassador Victor Ashe.
Yes.
Jennifer Wilkerson, yes. Chris Voss is absent. Alicia Hodge.
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter.
Yes.
Tanisha Hawley is absent. Brian Lapps.
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent. Dick Williams is absent. Jonathan Smith is absent. Mr. Dan Haskell.
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson.
Yes.
Joel Christopher.
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris.
Yes.
Lauren Lamberth.
Yes.
And Senator Richard Briggs and Representative John Crawford are absent. We have 10 yes votes and 0 nos.
Chairman, I wonder if we could ask one of our technical staff if they could maybe talk Mr. Ashe through how to unmute his computer so we can remove the echo.
Yeah, that would be, why don't we do that? And barring that. Yeah. Okay, we'll try to walk through that.
All right, so on your team's screen there, you should see the call with all of us. On the top right, you should see an end button and 3 icons beside it. One of them is a mic looking icon, and you need to unmute it.
All right. Does that do it?
That does it.
Yeah, so now hang up the cell phone. So just be on the team's call with us.
I'll do that.
All right, wonderful.
Well, it's my landline.
You can hang up the landline.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we can,
So you can hear now?
yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Was a state senator.
Now, the next order of business is to review and approve the minutes. The minutes were circulated. Do we have any suggested
move they be
revision.
approved.
Do we have any, before any of that, do we have any revisions to the minutes?
As we previously discussed, we need to change the reference to the House Chairman to John Crawford.
I believe that would be appropriate.
That notation has been made. Representative John Crawford for the House State and Local Government Committee.
And from the Open Record Council, could we get an update on the website on that too, please? Thank you. Okay, there was also a comment made, and I circulated it this morning to the Office of Open Records Council, and I believe it was then sent back to you. You've all had a chance to see it if you're here because it was printed out, and I trust everybody online has seen it. The general gist of the comment is that we did not sufficiently restate everything he said, and there might be a material omission, or there might be a misstatement of what he was said. I would like to read what the statutory requirement is. It comes from Tennessee Code Annotated 844-104, Public Meeting Minute Details. And it says, the minutes of a meeting of any such governmental body shall be promptly and fully recorded, open to the public, and shall include, but not be limited to, a record of persons present, all motions, proposals, and resolutions offered, the results of any votes taken, and a record of individual votes in the event of a roll call. If you recognize that language from the materials you saw, that's almost verbatim in the draft of the bylaws. In addition, Robert's Rules of Order 48-2 provide that in an ordinary society, the minutes should contain mainly a record of what was done at the meeting, not what was said by the members. And the newly revised in brief of Robert's Rules of Order explain that the most frequent mistakes by secretaries are trying to summarize the reports offered and arguments made in debate, and including all of the amendments and other secretary motions. In fact, in standard form, the minutes should generally include only what was done, not what was said. So with that, I'm wondering what, if anybody is thinking we should amend the minutes to reflect more fully what was said, because I think the minutes are very well done already. They're not intended to be verbatim, and anybody who wants a verbatim recitation can watch the video. So
Perhaps as a middle ground, we can just treat this as a comment and attach it to this meeting's minutes.
do we want to get into the habit of attaching comments to meetings, though?
What did we do with the last comments that were submitted?
They were not attached to the minutes.
The minutes. So I'm just saying, treat it like a public comment.
Treat it like a public comment, which I did by forwarding it. So, all right. What?
But I would agree with you. It's not a material change that requires a change to the minutes.
Okay. So without hearing anybody wanting to change the minutes to include that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
I so move that minutes be adopted.
I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes as amended here today to reflect Representative Crawford as the appropriate representative. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
We've got a
Second,
motion.
Karen Jackson.
All right. And as soon as you're ready, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
I want to be sure that I'm understanding what we're calling the roll. We are voting at this time to approve the minutes with the edit of Representative John Crawford as the House Chair.
Correct.
Okay, correct. All right, so we're calling the roll. Ambassador Victor Ashe,
Yes.
Jennifer Wilkerson, I'm a yes. Chris Voss, Alicia Hodge,
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter,
Yes.
I believe Tanisha Hawley is absent. Brian Lapps,
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent. Dick Williams and Jonathan Smith are absent. Dan Haskell,
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson,
Yes.
Joel Christopher,
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris,
Yes.
Lauren Lambert,
Yes.
and Senator Richard Briggs and Representative Crawford are absent. Chairman Lapps, we have 10 voting yes, 0 no's.
So the motion carries. Thank you. The minutes are approved. All right, the next order of business is the review and approval of a public comment policy. Included in materials is a draft public comment policy. I started from the Board of Education, the State Board of Education policy, and then I made some modifications that I thought were appropriate given our different functions. It was posted to the comptroller's website along with a copy of the agenda, and you received a copy in advance. The purpose and my goals in drafting it were to comply, number one, with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, but also to provide some practical guidance to guide the committee. So you've seen the highlights. We can go through it if we need to. We can discuss it, whatever you want to do. I would say that and point out that it does say requests to address the committee must be made 2 days in advance and identify the agenda item or issues germane to the responsibilities that the commenter wishes to comment on. But if we adopt the policy today, I think we ought to waive that requirement for today in case anybody was not aware of it, and that would seem to be fair to do that. So,
Can I speak to that?
yes, sir.
I think that's burdensome to require 2 days' notice. I mean, what if someone just walks in? They hadn't seen it. They ought to be able to address the commission. We're there, particularly if they're the only one. I'm on the State Museum Commission. We don't require this. You just show up. And the truth is, we never have more than 1 or 2 people. But it seems to me, now I guess if we adopt it and someone showed up, we could suspend the rules and hear them anyway, assuming there was a 2/3 vote. But it seems to me, not everyone's going to get a copy. If someone wanders in and wants to speak, I could see a time limit, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Not, you can't speak a half hour, but I think anyone ought to be able to walk in and, that I was preside over city council for 16 years. We never required people to do that.
Just a point of clarification, that requirement is only for written or emailed comments?
No, it would be for registering. The purpose of it, as I understand it, and I'm not trying to argue the point, is just for coordination of comments. I can see it would be valuable, if we have 9 commenters, to group those who want to comment about the same thing together, as well as to know who's going to be there. I do see Ambassador Ash's point, and most of the time, I'm guessing we're not going to have more people than we can handle. But then you run into the question of what happens if we get too many people and we're just not going to be able to handle them all. Are we? I don't know. Maybe that's probably a theoretical issue.
With all due deference, let's wait till that happens. It hadn't happened. We can't foresee every hypothetical situation. If we're truly open, then I think we ought to be open. And if you walk in those double doors behind you and want to speak, and it's the appropriate place on the agenda, I'm willing to hear you.
So
And I don't think we should do anything to limit or restrict. And we should practice what we're wanting others to do.
So I'll just say the other side of that argument. 2 days is, or any requirement of time of notice is not an uncommon requirement. I serve on other committees where it's even greater than 2 days. So in my opinion, 2 business days is not burdensome, especially when the minutes and the agenda are supposed to be posted, I can't remember how long, but in advance of the meeting, giving the public plenty of time. And really, it just allows for a more organized meeting, as you say, Brian.
I'll just speak up, Dr. Karen Jackson. I don't think you can see my raised hand, so I'll put it down. I happen to agree that the 2-day notice is reasonable. I don't think if there's an issue so urgent, I believe if I read the rules correctly, there is a way to allow comments. But the other part of this committee, since we don't meet all that often, is to be organized and have a chance to review and think about what's been presented. And just letting people walk in becomes, they can come walk in, I'm not saying that, but to have to know what they want in advance is just difficult. It's logistically difficult. But if we have to make an exception, as Mr. Ash said, there's room for it in what's been proposed.
I agree that
I would just point out, city councils and county commissions around the state generally don't do this. And they meet a lot more than we do. They meet every 2 weeks.
yeah.
I mean, if you're going to pass it, you're going to pass it. I'll vote no. But you're going to find that for my time on here, I'm for making it as easy as possible with as few restrictions as possible on coming and addressing us. We're a committee on open government, not 2 days later.
I think it's also likely theoretical that this would ever be an issue, but I have to agree with the ambassador that we ought to err in the favor of as much openness, as much accessibility as possible.
Yeah, I sort of disagree with that. I think 2 days. Most of the commissions that I've been involved in actually requires more than 2 days, and not only that, they actually limit the time that you can actually speak. So I think 2 days is most certainly fair.
Well, again, I made it clear, I don't mind having a limit. In fact, I think you should have a limit on the amount of time.
Yeah, we do
I
have.
don't think you ought,
And,
but
and
I don't think if someone walks in, just heard about it that morning, wanted to come, we're going to say, too bad, you can wait 3 months when we meet again.
It does. Just for clarification, we do have a 5-minute limit.
And to clarify, I think it actually is more helpful to have the 2 days notice, as Ms. Jackson said. Then you have more opportunity to prepare what you're actually going to say in response to the comments. And someone walks in and makes a comment, all we're going to do is go, okay, thank you, we'll take that under advisement until the next meeting, if we address it at all. So the 2 days notice gives you opportunity to prepare and have some kind of response in the meeting that is coming within the 2 days.
Do we have any ability to waive that requirement?
I think it's in there explicitly, but if not, it's certainly implicit.
I think if we made it,
anyone can make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to suspend the rule for the meeting for that purpose.
Right.
That's a proper motion. And if it can get 2/3 vote, it passes.
To the point about preparing for it, I don't know that that's necessarily required, though, because we're not likely to act on a comment in that particular meeting. We have 3 months to consider that comment before we would act. I just want to echo Victor's point that I think we ought to encourage the least restrictions on public comment.
What if we encouraged people to submit it 2 days in advance?
That'd be fine. I can accept that. Encourage is not mandate.
Yeah, I have no strong feelings on this, at least with this committee. I don't have strong feelings, if anybody cares what my opinion is. And I'm going to be gone. I'm rolling off next year, too. So it will be an issue.
Well, do you need to change the motion to change it to encourage? You need a motion to do that?
Well, let's
accept
talk.
your recommendation.
Okay, we can talk about, let's, I just was trying to read the room if encourage, before we have I mean, there's no motion to adopt these on the table, so I don't know that we need to move right now, but I'd rather just discuss and have questions, and then we can make all revisions and have one motion as opposed to multiple motions. So thoughts about changing it to encouraged, that people are encouraged.
I certainly would support that. We could even be explicit about that. It gives the board more time to consider the nature of the comment.
So I see it for written comments. Where does it say it for speaking comments?
2B.
Two.
All right, nobody seems to object to that, so let's hold that. Other thoughts on the draft of the policy? So again, written comment is permitted, and we can change that to say written comments are encouraged to be provided at least 2 business days prior to the meeting. That's in item 4. Because as you saw today, we got it this morning. It was forwarded to you this morning. So that's what I think we would continue to do. People are allowed to apply, come remotely. There is a limit on 1 representative per organization, so you can't string together and essentially filibuster the time by getting 8 or 9 people to speak about a single topic. It also provides that the comment period is for comment, not any kind of debate or interactive process. And then there are discussion, it's not a matter of discussion, although the co-chairs can waive that and have discussions if they want. So, any other questions or thoughts about this before we move forward with it?
If there, nobody else was to talk about it, I would move we adopt the policy with the amendment to include the word encourage.
I do have one other comment
Okay.
before we go
I
on.
withdraw my motion.
Sorry. On, what are we on? 5G? I just want to clarify, so that statement seems to limit the public comment to items in the agenda, but I think the overall gist of this policy is the agenda or germane to what we do here.
You're correct. Thank you.
It's interesting, and Joel will appreciate this. We've had this debate now going on with our city council in Knoxville now for about 6 months, because there were some people on the Israeli-Gaza issue that were coming to city council, which last time I checked, city council doesn't regulate Israel and Palestine issues, but they wanted to use the comment period to outline their deeply held views, which we couldn't do much about. And they were running it, 12 people on one issue and whatever. Anyway, they've set up a special committee, and and it's sort of faded away lately. But again, no one's figured out this is a good place to talk about Palestine. And I would agree that's not really relevant to what we do. But I'm happy to hear from people. If we get to this where it's a problem, then we need to address it. But we can't sit here and visualize every issue that might come up.
I agree. And my view as a co-chair is that we would allow wide discretion on comments of what might be germane. I'm in agreement, Israel-Palestine, probably not germane, but hopefully we will only have, so far we've only had germane comments or comments on what is in the agenda. Hopefully that will continue. So, all right. So what I would like to do is ask for a motion to adopt the policy on request to address the committee with the following amendments. The first sentence of section 2B would read, the person is encouraged to submit a request as indicated on the notice of meeting or as otherwise directed at least 2 business days prior to the scheduled start time of the meeting. The second change would be to the second sentence in paragraph 4, which would read, written comments are encouraged to be provided at least 2 business days prior to the meeting. And then the third revision would be in section 5G, and it would pick up with, confine their remarks to the topics indicated in the notice of meeting or germane to the responsibilities of the committee and indicated in the recognition by the co-chairs. So I'm asking for that motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Madam Chair, please, or Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
All right, we are calling the roll for the motion and second on public comments policy with the included amendments. Ambassador Victor Ash.
Yes.
I'm Jennifer Wilkerson. I vote yes. Chris Voss is absent. Alicia Hodge.
Yes.
Dr. Lee Carter.
Yes.
Tanisha Hawley is absent. Brian Lapps.
Yes.
Chief Sammy Williams is absent. Dick Williams. Jonathan Smith is absent. Dan Haskell.
Yes.
Dr. Karen Jackson.
Yes.
Joel Christopher.
Yes.
Sheriff Eddie Ferris.
No.
Lauren Lambert.
Yes.
Senator Richard Briggs is absent, and Representative John Crawford are absent. We have 9 yeses and 1 no.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. We now have a policy on request to address the committee. Can we get this posted on the ACOG website? Okay, thank you. All right, we now have a public comment session. I wanted to have it early so if anybody had thoughts on some of the other things on the agenda, they could discuss it. And I think we're all in agreement, and thus I'm going to say by unanimous consent, unless there is objection, that we will hear from any members of the public who did not pre-register, which I guess they don't even have to now that we just encourage them to. So, Mr. Peter Mayer requested to address the committee, and his email this morning said he may have a personal conflict. So I do not see him in the room, and I have not seen him online. Mr. Mayer, are you online? All right. Is there anybody else online who would wish to address the committee? All right, Mr. Walker, you're recognized. Mr. Walker, you're recognized. I think you need to unmute because we cannot hear you. Maybe there's a microphone button in the top right corner. All right, thank you, Mr. Walker. All right, Mr. Walker, would you please introduce yourself and then provide your comments to the committee?
I'm Robert Walker. I'm on the State Board of League of Women Voters, and am very interested in the subject matter of the committee, and I plan to participate as a member of the audience. The question I have for you right here is about the nature of who serves on the advisory committee. Are the people that are on the committee are you all considered individuals, or are you considered representatives of the organizations that you have been selected to represent? The reason I ask this question is if someone was unable to attend, that would mean the voice of that organization would be lost. And I like the composition of the committee because it does give the opportunity to hear a lot of voices. So that's my question: is there any opportunity for an organization that a member is going to be absent to have a substitute representative? Thank you.
Mr. Walker, one of the things we just passed in our policy was that this is really not a Q&A unless the co-chairs agree. I will point out that the statute governs how we are appointed, and it says representatives shall be appointed from certain groups, and the comptroller then selects among the nominees provided. I'm not sure I have a firm opinion on whether that person then is certainly that person is representative of the group, but I don't know that I'm speaking for all of higher education, and thus I don't know, I don't have a voice to speak for higher education. I have a voice to speak for me, and I try to, do what a constituency says. So I would think different members of the committee have different views on those things, and that would all be fine. I would also point out that in the bylaws that we are set to look at for a first reading, not vote on today, it does talk in section 2B3, member responsibilities. It talks about members attending, and then it says voting members are not permitted to name a designee to attend the meeting in their place. So the proposal that is in the bylaws would not allow committee members to name a proxy. The reason I put that in there is I think that's consistent with the statute, which gives the comptroller the authority to name who is going to be serving on this committee. And by allowing proxy, that would allow that would be, in my mind, at least in tension and possibly inconsistent with the statutory scheme of the comptroller deciding who from the representatives, who will be the representative. And it would give essentially somebody it would give each of the groups the ability to appoint themselves their own. So that's why I have that in there, and that's why I think that should be in there.
You.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for your comment. Is that all?
Yes.
All right. Great. Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else online who would like to comment? All right. Seeing nobody and hearing nobody, is there anybody present today who would like to comment? I don't see anybody or hear anybody stepping forward, so thank you very much for the public comments. And that concludes the public comment session. We will now move on to training on the Open Meetings Act, which I had asked Ms. Chadwick, the Open Records Counsel, to provide us, but I understand she has a conflict today. And Seth May looks like he is going to be the one who provides us with the training.
If you'll give me just a second to get
Thank
set
you.
up. Can you all hear me? And can you all see a screen? It honestly sounds like you all have a pretty good handle on this. This is the presentation we typically give. If at any point you have questions, I would rather take questions than give a sermon any day. So the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, or TOMA, it's codified starting at Tennessee Code 844-101. And the basics of TOMA are that the formation of public policy and decisions are public business. It should not be conducted in secret. The provisions of TOMA should be construed broadly in favor of public access. And TOMA provides the right to attend meetings. And as of recently, it does provide the public comment period. It applies to all meetings of a governing body. So the biggest questions we deal with day to day, that the Office of Open Records Counsel deals with day to day, will fall into one of those categories. So governing body is generally the members of a public body with the authority to make decisions for that body or recommendations to that body for any kind of body established by legislative action. So counties and cities are all established by the legislature. Within a county or a city, they can create different boards or different commissions within that. Those are all created by legislative action, and so those are all going to be considered governing bodies under TOMA. There are a handful of nonprofits that qualify for that. Those are fairly specific to the statute. And if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to look at it later, but it's too specific for me to say. I'll give off the top of my head. There is sort of an exception for advisory committees or commissions that are created by a single individual, that are created by executive action. So the case we have on this was from I believe the chancellor at UT Knoxville. He created a commission to look into something for him. That commission was created by executive action. They were all appointed by a single individual. It was not done at the request of their Board of Regents. Since it was created by executive action, that body was not found to be subject to TOMA. A meeting is generally any time that two members of a governing body deliberate or discuss the business of that body. So two members can talk outside of a meeting, but not about the business of that body. They can talk about the weather, they can talk about their kids. They cannot talk about the subject of the governing body. That includes both how they're going to vote and also deliberation. So what they think about an issue or what should be taken up at the next meeting. Deliberation is pretty broadly interpreted, and it can take place either online, in writing, or in person. So you can deliberate on an issue over text message or over email, and that would be a TOMA violation. There are sort of exceptions for executive sessions and for informational workshops. An executive session is essentially a government body meeting with their attorney. And so within very limited context, that can be confidential or that can be held outside of a public meeting. And informational sessions would be something like the presentations that we give across the state. If information is flowing purely in one direction, if we go and present to a governing body and it is purely us preaching the good word of open meetings and open records, that's an informational session and does not have to comply with TOMA. But if it's going to be a back and forth, if things are going to be discussed, that's going to be more likely to be a public meeting and should be noticed. So TOMA's basic requirements: meetings have to be open to the public. There has to be adequate public notice of meetings. Y'all have already talked about meeting minutes. The requirements for that are fairly bare bones. All votes have to be all votes have to be public. There are no secret ballots. An agenda for the meeting has to be posted 48 hours in advance. And in almost every case, there will have to be an opportunity for public comment. I mentioned adequate public notice. Adequate public notice is notice that is adequate under the circumstances. There are some situations where certain governing bodies will have specific requirements. So utilities, they used to have to publish notice of their meetings in a newspaper. That's not required by TOMA. Those are specific to those bodies. TOMA just requires adequate public notice, and that's notice that is adequate, that is reasonably calculated to reach the governing body's population. Adequate public notice for a regular meeting only includes the time and place of a meeting. For a special called meeting, which is anything that's not a regular meeting, adequate public notice includes the time and location of the meeting, but it also has to include a reasonable description of what will take place at the meeting. So that's part of the adequate public notice requirement, and that's distinct from the agenda requirement. So two separate requirements with two separate requirements on them. The public comment period is relatively new. We don't have I don't think we have any interpretation of it from the courts. So as far as what is a reasonable restriction, we don't have a lot of guidance other than what comes from the statute. So generally, reasonable restrictions would be the length of total time for comments, or the length of time that an individual speaker can take for comments. Advanced notice is pretty common, and we think that would be a reasonable restriction, and a restriction on the total number of speakers. However, that section of the statute does require that opposing viewpoints be represented fairly. So that doesn't mean that a governing body is required to go out and find opposing viewpoints. The governing body is not required to go out and seek, both sides to an issue. But if both sides request to comment, the governing body can't stack the odds and stack the speakers in favor of one side or the other.
Can I ask one question here?
Sure.
Sometimes you have more than two sides. You have 3 or 4 sides.
Yes, the statute is written as though every issue are binary.
Well, but that's not the case. There are often times when you have 2 or 3 different or 4 different sides. Do they each be represented?
That's a great
Assuming
question.
there are people there that want to espouse that view.
That is an excellent question.
And what's the answer?
I would say, as long as I'm co-chair,
You
we'll
don't
try to
know?
hear from all sides.
Well, that would be my thought too.
Yeah.
But that's not what you said.
Well, that's the statute is the statute, and
Yep.
far be it from me to criticize statutes.
Exactly that.
I would
The
argue,
statutes-
I would argue that opposing means any opposing. So one may be opposing number five, five may be opposing number three viewpoint, and they're all opposing. So all viewpoints should be represented fairly, or have the opportunity to be represented fairly.
And so I currently sit as counsel to a utility board, and if it came before us, that's how I would interpret it.
I agree with that.
The agenda requirement is also fairly new. So all state level bodies and then some local government bodies are required to post an agenda 48 hours in advance. Again, that is distinct from the adequate public notice requirement.
Yes, Abby.
And so an item can be added to an agenda less than 48 hours if it's less than 48 hours before the meeting or at the meeting. For a special called meeting, though, that has to list the topic of the meeting, things can't be added last minute. For a special called meeting, if it's not addressed in the meeting notice, then it can't be discussed at the meeting. For a regular meeting, it can be brought up if it's not on the agenda.
So can you break that down? Sorry, the notice of meeting has to be posted how far in advance?
The notice of the meeting has to be posted more than 48 hours in advance,
But the agenda is,
48 hours.
okay. So it's just a separate item is what you're saying, separate
they're-
document. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Nope, that's it.
So executive sessions, these are things that are either not meetings or that are exceptions to TOMA. So we talked about meetings with an attorney or informational sessions. Hospital boards, school safety planning commissions, and government audit committees. Those are all statutory exceptions where the statutes say that they don't have to comply with TOMA, or at least in certain circumstances. If TOMA's
Does that include the executive sessions if you want to discuss personnel issues?
I don't anticipate us having any personnel issues.
as a general,
Well, you could. Let's say you're unhappy with someone that's been assigned to us. That'd be a personnel issue.
I'd recommend you meet with the attorney, which is Rachel, and that would be an executive session.
And if you're unhappy with the attorney, who do you meet with? And you could be. No offense to you.
That would
don't
be
mean that
unfortunate.
personally. It would be, but it's a legitimate question.
it is, it's a really great question.
And I've been on boards where we were unhappy with the legal counsel.
Sounds like that's something you'd have to talk about in the public meeting.
Yep.
You mean you couldn't go into executive session to discuss why you had questions about the legal counsel, but you can do it on everyone else? Is that what you're saying?
The distinction would be you're meeting with counsel for legal representation, for legal advice. If there's no attorney there, you're not seeking legal advice. You're just discussing the attorney with someone else.
Well, if we had, and this is all theoretical, would we contact the AG and say, we're unhappy with the one you sent, would you send someone else?
I mean, it's possible, yeah.
Don't misinterpret. We're not unhappy with you.
It's okay, I'm not the attorney.
Or at least I'm not.
Any other questions here? All right, if TOMA is violated, technically any actions taken in violation of TOMA are null and void. The courts have broad jurisdiction to impose sanctions.
Can
for
you turn
violations.
up the volume?
Sorry, I tend to mumble and not talk very loud. Yes. Any actions that are taken in violation of TOMA are typically null and void. There are ways to remedy TOMA violations. For instance, if we said that there was a TOMA violation in appointing co-chairs at the last meeting, we took the appropriate remedial action was taken at this meeting. So I would say that any sort of violation that occurred has been remedied, and I would not think that a court would have imposed any sort of sanctions for that. And I don't know what other remedial action could be taken. If there are willful violations of TOMA, then citizens have a right to take the governing body to court if there is a violation of TOMA. And the governing body can be assessed reasonable attorney's fees or other reasonable fees if an action does go to court, if the violation is found to be willful.
Let me ask you this. If it's a willful violation, is it the board that pays or the individual members that created the violation?
I think it's technically going to be the board. However, courts do have broad jurisdiction. I think they likely could assess an individual sanction. But I
So
don't
if it's the board, it's basically the taxpayers of Tennessee or Knox County or whatever it is, not the individual members who actually did it.
That's correct.
that may be something we ought to look at, because if individual members knew they'd have to pay personally, they'd be sure reluctant to violate it. Whereas if it's somebody else's money, well, it's just somebody else's money.
It's a part of the Office of Open Records
That's a
Counsel.
broader issue this group ought to look at, in my view.
Sure, that may be appropriate for the committee to look at. It's not appropriate for the Office of Open Records Counsel to comment on. We can't comment on the value or the good of a policy. We can talk about the law and what the law says, but not what it should say.
And that will be, I don't know how much longer you have, Mr. May, but that will be, it might be a good segue. And if it's not a segue because you have more, it will be something we will be talking about with Ms. Appelt, which is what is the scope of our duties? That is an agenda item that we're going to be addressing.
Do y'all have any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. I appreciate that. And we'll move on to the new business. And that item of new business is that I have asked Rachel Appelt, Deputy Attorney General, to come talk to us about what is the scope of our duties. This was a topic that we had some discussion about last time in August, and now we've had some discussion about it today. And it comes up and it's relevant to the consideration of our bylaws when you talk about our purpose and our duties. So I figured before we started launching into that, it would be good to know and get an opinion from the Attorney General's office as to what is the scope of the duties. In case you're wondering why Lauren Lamberth, who is seated to my right, who is the Attorney General's designee to the committee, is not providing this, there are a couple of reasons that I'd like to explain and then let Ms. Lamberth explain. Is that first, Ms. Appelt is the deputy for the relevant division. Second, Ms. Lamberth is a member of the committee, and the Open Meetings Act greatly limits what any other member of the committee can discuss with her relating to the business of the committee. And third, it's extremely difficult for a lawyer to be both a member of a committee and to provide advice, especially legal advice, to that committee. So for that reason, I've asked Ms. Appelt to advise us, but Ms. Lambert, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Totally agree.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Appelt, would you please introduce yourself and then explain to us how do you read our duties as a matter of
Thank you,
law?
everyone, for having me today. Rachel Appel with the Attorney General's Office in the Administrative Law Division. Happy to serve as your counsel for this committee. And I think that the bylaws very accurately state the duties of this committee. So I want to, even though we haven't taken them up for first read yet, I did want to tell you what that portion of the bylaws provides as far as the purpose of the committee. So, and it's all rooted in your governing statutes. So you're looking at Tennessee Code Annotated 84602A and 84603A1 and B2. So to read from those statutes, and we can discuss too as you have questions, you are providing guidance to the Office of Open Records Counsel. And that guidance is most commonly going to come from a request for advice from the council. We don't have Tony here, but we have Seth as a representative of the office. But a request from that office to opine, let's say that the office is considering an advisory opinion and wants input from this committee, it would come before the committee and seek the advice for whatever opinion it's working on. Yes.
I apologize to cut you off. My last day with the comptroller's office will be Friday.
Okay.
Elizabeth McCabe, she'll be joining the Office of Open Records Counsel.
It's nice to meet you. Welcome aboard. So not necessarily Seth, but Elizabeth will be here at these meetings. And hopefully Tony can join us as well and report back. And then you all would come before us with any requests for the committee. And then additionally, the legislature can make a request that the committee opine on a particular topic related to open government. And that is found in 8-4-603A1 and B2. Also, I think it's worth noting that the governor can also make a request. And I don't know if that's been done in the past, but it is officially part of your duties to advise the governor's office on any open government matters that arise.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You said the legislature can ask. Is that what you said?
Yes, the statute says that any committee of the General Assembly can make a request.
Well, that's a lot different than the legislature. Because an individual committee in either the House or the Senate, does it have to be a standing committee that's established, or could it be a special ad hoc committee that the speaker may have created to deal with a single issue?
You know, it just says any committee, so I would interpret that broadly.
To mean what? Yes?
I would say either of the ones that you mentioned
Meaning
could make a
either-
request.
Could it be a subcommittee of the House Finance Committee?
Yes, I believe so.
I mean, I'm not trying to quibble, but I'm the only former legislator here. Senator Briggs and the representative are not here, but these issues came up. Now, admittedly, it was 50 years ago, but before you were born. But I think it's important to know if a legislative committee asked us for an opinion or our thoughts, I assume we might have to call a special meeting. We're not going to say we don't meet for 4 months, so we'll get back to you then. I mean, they meet only 4 months a year. And so I assume we need some flexibility to respond. And would our meeting where we responded to them need to be public?
Yes, it would. And so let me say too, with regard to the way that meetings are scheduled, you're required to meet once a year, but every other meeting is specially set. So in that case, you would have the co-chairs decide on a meeting date. Is that correct?
That's how I read it. So if we had any questions, we would reach out for legal advice and we'd probably clarify. I mean, I'd hate to tell a subcommittee, no, you don't have the authority to ask us any questions. So I would interpret it broadly as well, but I think we can cross that bridge.
I think
when we come to it.
your answer is very helpful because you're basically saying any committee or subcommittee of a committee or ad hoc committee can ask this group for an opinion, and then our two co-chairs would have to decide when we would meet. Now, I don't know if the full committee, if the two co-chairs didn't want to meet, I guess they could stop the meeting, but surely that wouldn't happen.
Seems unlikely.
And I assume this would also include a joint committee of the legislature, such as the Fiscal Review Committee.
Yes.
Is that true too?
Yes, that's how I interpret it.
I think it would be helpful if your answers were written down somewhere or put in the minutes so we could refer back to this, or our successors on this committee could refer to it, because it's not entirely clear in my mind. You've made it clear, and you've been very helpful in your answer.
Thank you. I'm glad that you're satisfied with my representation. I would say that we could add something in the bylaws when we get to that portion of the meeting, potentially, to clarify.
I also wanted to clarify a point. The statute doesn't limit the guidance that this committee can give to the Office of Open Records Counsel.
Mm-hmm.
We can provide guidance without a request from the office, correct?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
I think it's most commonly going to come from a request, but no, you can also initiate guidance as well.
Great.
Thanks for
Well, I
clarifying
think, General, given the makeup of this committee with Mr. Christopher as editor of a newspaper, myself as a former legislator and a mayor who dealt with this for 16 years, we're aware of a lot of issues that we deal with or dealt with and that we may have views on. Our colleagues may or may not share our individual views. That remains to be seen, but there may be topics that we'd like to bring up that we think are pressing, but that we haven't been asked by a standing committee or the governor. And I assume when you say the governor's office, does that mean the governor himself or someone on his staff?
A representative, so it could be someone on his staff.
But someone who is actually on his staff.
Yes.
Now, this does not include, I gather from what you say, standing commissions like the Higher Education Committee or the UT Board of Trustees or the Board of Regents or the Fish and Wildlife. I mean,
So
there are what,
not
150 different groups in state government.
not directly, but if you were to receive a public comment from, say, one of those organizations and decided that guidance was needed on a particular topic that they raised, you could certainly take that up.
Let me ask one further question about the legislature. You said a committee can ask. I think that's what you said. Can the chair of the committee ask without a vote of the committee?
I would say that's a little more risky in that the statute contemplates the governing body itself making the request. So I think that would be something where the chair would need to get advice from counsel, as far as whether would need a
meaning
vote
our
from
chair
from his
or-
own committee.
Would that be our chair getting advice? Or because you do have cases with legislative committees where the chair has one point of view and majority of the committee may have a different point of view.
I think if we were to get a request from the chair, we would assume it's coming from the committee itself, unless we had reason to question that. I wouldn't interfere in their process.
Well, but if you got a
necessarily.
letter from the majority of the committee saying we never voted to do this, the chair's acting on his own, that would put us in an awkward situation.
I would hope that that wouldn't happen, but yeah, it sure would, and we would address that as it arises.
So we don't know the answer.
I think we should wait till the situation arises, and that's exactly what an executive session might be for, is to discuss all the legalities of that particular situation and how to handle it.
I bring it up because we have such partisan divisions in the legislature nowadays, where something like that could come up. I would regret it. I hope it never does. But, a lot of unusual things are happening nowadays.
Just my opinion, not legal advice. I would say if it's just the committee chair without the committee, that is a person and not the committee making the request. So if the committee chair acts on his or her own without the approval of the committee, that is just a person making the request, and that is not what the statute anticipates. The statute anticipates the committee making the request.
Mr. Chair, as somebody who was involved in the lobbying and the drafting about the statute, I would reflect for everybody else's information that a lot of the discussion was about the notion that this entity might comment on legislation proposed. And I think that's important at this point because that might require that we meet more regularly during a legislative session. There is another committee that does that on workers' comp bills. And the legislature has adopted a policy of just automatically referring all those bills to that committee. I don't suggest that that's a good idea or a bad idea, but it reflects that if you're the chairman of the state and local government committee, for example, and you're presented with a bill that you would like some commentary on, I think it's highly likely that they would send it to us. And that's why Senator Briggs has shown an interest in this, and I think actually sponsored the legislation. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I would think it might be necessary, but the legislative session moves so quickly, and then in fits and starts on any particular bill. It would be hard to figure. It would be hard to know when we would meet that it would be relevant to meet until the legislation comes into focus sometimes. So that's just my opinion. No objection to meeting as often as necessary, but I don't want to have meetings just for the sake of meetings if it's not going to be necessary either.
I would say if a legislative committee actually voted on an issue and asked us to take a stand, we should bend over backwards to honor that request as quickly as we could.
Absolutely.
It may not be the answer they want, but we need to give them an answer.
Absolutely. All right, anything else, Ms. Appleton?
Nothing from me.
All right. Any other questions for General Appel?
Tell General's Committee we'd love to see him someday, and he ought to come over and see us.
Will do. I'll send that message back.
All right. Well, thank you very much. The next item on our new business agenda is location of the meetings. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, I had a question when I started looking at the statute about our legal authority to meet somewhere else, because the statute talks about the Office of Open Records Counsel facilitating the meetings in this office, in this conference room. So I don't know whether that's a mandatory, should be mandatory or permissive. So Ms. Appelt, your thoughts on, is that portion of the statute mandatory or permissive?
Remind me which statute you're looking at so we can all follow along.
I'm looking at 84603, subsection A4, which provides the Office of Open Records Counsel shall facilitate the convening of meetings of the Advisory Committee on Open Government. As used in this subdivision A4, facilitate means, and it includes reserving a room for the Advisory Committee to meet in the offices of the Comptroller of the Treasury. So I don't know whether that means we have to meet here or whether we are facilitating means we're able to meet here, but not exclusively limited to meeting here.
I don't think the statute says that there's any restriction on where you can meet necessarily.
Okay.
I think the intent, though, is that you meet here.
Yeah. And then,
So the spirit of the law certainly is to continue to meet here.
Yeah.
And as long as you
Let
mentioned.
me just say that this is not very convenient for me. I'm handicapped and have to park in handicapped spaces, and there are very few of them around this building. I don't even know where they are. That's one reason I haven't been. Whereas if we met at the State Museum or the State Library and Archives, where they have parking immediately adjacent and numerous places outlined in case you had 4 or 5 people with handicap stickers. And I don't think we're looking at that issue. And I'd hate to think we're limited to one building. Surely the legislature, if they did mean it, we need to ask them to change it.
To the extent you would need an accommodation, I think we should certainly consider getting you a special parking spot. So that's definitely
I
an
hate
option.
to be only, but what do you do if you have 4 or 5 people who want to attend the meeting? They're not members, they just want to attend the meeting. We have to provide parking for them too.
So what I've heard is we can meet somewhere else, that we're not restricted from meeting here, but if we need to meet here, the comptroller needs to let us meet here.
And it's more of a logistics issue, but then also, as you mentioned earlier, there are certain requirements that we have to consider under the Open Meetings Act. There's actually 7 requirements if you have members participating electronically that you have to comply with. And so one of them, as you mentioned earlier, was to make a recording. So we have to be in a facility that allows us to have the capability to not only allow members to participate electronically, but to make a recording of their participation and our participation as well, of those that are in person. So that would be, I think, the real turning point.
And that was the next thing that caused me to wonder, like, okay, as I started to think through this, I thought, and you'll recall that I offered as a possibility that meeting at the Tennessee Board of Regents offices, because it was perhaps more convenient for most people, at least, than meeting here. But then I started thinking about all the electronic issues, some of which we've seen today, and the electronic issues I've witnessed in our board meetings, which ranges from people unable to log on, to thunderstorms, to just various IT issues. And I thought, I can't ask TBR to assume the responsibility for complying with another entity's Open Meeting Act requirements. So that raises, in my mind, then the logistical question of, will we have the necessary support from the Office of Open Records Counsel if we take the show on the road, either to another part of Davidson County or to another part of the state, as we talked about last time. And that's really a question for the Open Records Office of Open Records Counsel or the Comptroller's Office. I'm not clearly sure on whether they would be able to facilitate those meetings at other locations. I can't really speak for them.
And would they facilitate handicap parking?
It probably depends on the location we go to. I mean, most
Well,
places
they
are,
have. I mean, the federal law is pretty darn clear. That's not optional to comply. You have to.
right.
Sure, that's almost all of that's going to depend on what's available at the facility.
Yeah.
So we can't really ask our tech support staff to go to another location to set up everything that would be required to video a meeting. They can certainly do what they can do, but there's only so much we can do. And like handicap parking, we can't help that. That's going to be dependent on the location.
To me, offering the electronic or the virtual option levels out the issue somewhat. I mean, obviously, it's better to be in person, but I couldn't be there if it weren't for this virtual option. I can't drive 3 hours there and wait 3 hours and then 3 hours back all the way over to the west side. So to me, it offers a diversity and a chance to attend with or without, a handicap. And I'm happy to be able to do it and plan to do it every time you're available. Even if I am somewhere else, the virtual option says, okay, all I have to do is tune in with my iPad. So, I mean, a lot of things, what ifs can happen. I think we're a reasonable board and we can figure out what ifs as they come about.
To the point of making it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, it's paramount that the communication in a hybrid meeting be as flawless as it can be. And this, I'm speaking as somebody who is coming from East Tennessee. Having this technical support is invaluable. So knowing that we have some consistency in our ability to conduct a hybrid meeting, I think is critical.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to take the show on the road unless I was comfortable that we could have this consistency.
I think it's unlikely that we have a meeting elsewhere unless there's some pressing reason why that's necessary. And I can't imagine what that is at this point, but a request from some group in Knoxville, they were all there. I guess there would be a reason, but it'd be unlikely. So I think our council has provided the right answer. We can stay here or go elsewhere, but we likely will stay here.
That seems to be the practical result. I would say unless we can be sure that there is going to be adequate tech support to comply with the Open Meetings Act, where we would want to go. And since the co-chairs have the authority to call the meeting, and the co-chairs would then have the authority to call the meeting elsewhere, that seems like it would be a matter of discussion among the co-chairs.
Let me follow up on what Joel said, and I agree with him. Having the technical support is absolutely paramount. But I serve on the State Museum Commission. I also serve on the Tennessee Historic Commission. We meet around the state all the time. I mean, we just got through meeting up in Jonesboro for the Historical Commission. For the Museum Commission, we met up there as well at Rocky Mount. Because we're a statewide commission, we feel we should make ourselves available. And, a city like Knoxville, Chattanooga, Johnson City, or Memphis, they have technological support. Don't tell me that you couldn't find a building that's owned by the city of Memphis or Shelby County where this could be held. Would it be more difficult? Answer is yes. And it may be a majority of this commission is not going to meet outside Nashville. So be it. But I'm just saying, there is a trend. The UT Board of Trustees meets regularly outside the Knoxville campus because obviously they have campuses elsewhere. And so it's not unusual, and frankly, it's not terribly convenient for some people. When we meet in Memphis, that's a 7-hour drive for me, but I've done it.
Any further discussion on that point? All right.
I do think we need to set these meetings several months out, whether it's the first Thursday in April or June or whatever, so we can plan our schedule. This one I learned about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. I pretty well made my calendar, and that's one reason I'm not here today. I mean, here meaning Nashville. And I don't see any reason we're going to meet 3 times a year, which seems reasonable. That we couldn't decide, it doesn't have to be this morning, but at some point the co-chair could say, what month and what day. The Museum Commission meets the second Monday of January, April, July, and October. I mean, that's just set in stone.
I recall setting this meeting at the last meeting, and we had considerable discussion about when to set it, including making sure we did not set it right after the election day or on election day. So, what the final thing I think we'll talk about today is scheduling the next meeting. So I think it will be at least a few months in advance. But the next item is the review of the bylaws, because bylaws are foundational to organizations, and Robert's Rules of Order does not permit the amendment of a bylaws at a single meeting. 2 readings are required. So I think we ought to do that with respect to our bylaws. So where these bylaws came from is Ms. Chadwick provided me a draft of the bylaws. I assume that was done by our predecessors, and I have taken that draft and tried to make some modifications, which is what you received prior to this meeting. So I would hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the bylaws. You've noticed that I have included statutory sites where applicable, and it's applicable in an awful lot of places because I tried to stick closely to the statute where there was something in the statute. So why don't we just go through and just ask about each section, whether anybody has any comments, questions, thoughts on that? Anybody have an objection to doing that? Okay. Section 1, purpose. Thoughts, comments, questions? All right. Section 2 is the membership. I don't know if there are going to be any questions on.
I do, sorry.
Okay.
On B3, I just want to make it clear, the way it's written, if ex officio officers, including myself, vote, which I realize I already have now, the way it's currently written implies that that the general would have to be here. The designee cannot be here and vote, and I don't think that was intended. I think there should be a distinction between ex officio and not ex officio for voting purposes.
I'm sorry.
B3.
B3,
So the way
you're saying just it should be members are not permitted?
Just clarify the way it's currently written. If ex officio are going to be voting members, which I understand we're going to still decide, it implies that the ex officio designee cannot vote.
It does. And since you are a designee, that would be a problem.
Yes. So just tighten that up
Okay.
to designees can vote, but not just any random person appearing.
Does the statute say that the legislative members who are on this ex officio can't vote? Because that's not what I see.
No, there's nothing that says they can't. I'm making a distinction that the way it reads that designees cannot vote. So there are three that are ex officio, and they may have a designee. Right. If that office can vote, I'm asking that the designee can vote as well. Whereas you remember earlier there was a question about, well, what if someone can't appear? Can't they just send someone else in their place? There should be a distinction between anybody appearing to vote and those 3 ex officio officers that may or may not have the authority to vote and their designees. Does that make sense? No.
Well, generally, ex officio appointees are not voting members. But it appears from the statute that the intention was that
it can be read both ways. Yes.
That they are voting members just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with that.
That's up for discussion. That is.
You're here and I want you to vote.
And that's fine. I'm just saying the way the bylaws are written, I would not be able to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, what the statute says, and it's 602 B2. The advisory committee shall also consist of the chair of the State and Local Government Committee of the Senate and the State Government Committee of the House of the Representatives and the Attorney General and Reporter or the Attorney General and Reporter's designee. So Lauren Lamberth is the designee, as written, would not be permitted to vote.
I don't think that's right. I think Senator Briggs, Representative Crawford, and General Lamberth should be entitled to vote.
And that's a somewhat separate issue it's separate and intertwined.
Either they have the authority, we might be able to sort of explain it in the bylaws, but this is a statutory question.
Yeah, let's go a little bit out of order and address that issue, because that issue is in section 3B1, where we talk about where I've drafted a quorum of the committee shall consist of 1/2 or more of the voting members appointed and serving. And then I did not feel comfortable proposing, and I wanted it to be for this committee to discuss, is whether some or all of the ex officio members should be non-voting. In the research I've done, according to Robert's Rules of Order, the default position is that ex officio members get to vote unless there are bylaws saying they should not vote, which is why it's appropriate for General Lamberth to be voting today, because we don't have any bylaws saying she shouldn't vote. The bylaws could say that she could not vote. Where I've seen you have ex officio members who don't vote seems to be where they would be like a legal advisor. You wouldn't want your legal advisor voting. Or where there's just an inherent conflict or too much potential for a conflict of interest. That's where I've seen it. I know other people have more experience on committees and bodies than I do and may have additional thoughts on those issues.
If a senator had a bill on open records and if it was Senator Briggs, should he be able to vote on our recommendation on his bill?
I look at that as a situation. I don't think it's an inherent.
Recuse himself. But.
Yeah, I think he would recuse himself, and I think it's a situational. He wouldn't be encouraged. He would be seeing, I think, situational conflicts where situations might arise that would cause him to want to recuse himself. But I don't think there's an inherent conflict on the legislators voting. Would be my view, but that's just one person's view, and I don't want to inappropriately. So I'm just trying to lay out what I've looked at and my thoughts on what I've seen.
Can you hear me?
I think that's right. Situation specific. And the committee may want to explore adopting a conflict of interest policy for those situations and how those will be handled as far as recusal.
African Americans there are?
Yes, so I just want to be clear, there's two separate issues. Whether ex officio should vote or not, one issue. And then if ex officio is permitted to vote, 2B, what are we in? 3 currently says the designee cannot vote. That's what I'm having trouble with. So even if the ex officio office, my office can vote as the designee, the way the bylaws are currently written, would not let me as the designee vote. So I just want to clean that up to what we want. I'm not very passionate about what we do. I just want to reflect what we want in the bylaws.
I think I read that differently than you do, because I think in just your situation, the designee is a member of the committee.
But read the bylaws, though, is the problem. It says no voting members may not send a designee. So we can change that language to clean it up. But right now it says voting members cannot send a designee.
But I think you're the... Never mind.
I'm not.
Well,
I think
I
we
am
could-
the designee.
Yeah, I think we could.
I must apologize. I've got another meeting I've got to go to, so I will just have to step out.
Thank you, Dr. Carter.
It seems to make sense, first of all, to address whether the ex officio members are voting members or not. From my perspective, I do have some concerns about an ex officio member that represents the Attorney General's office voting because of the potential conflicts there. I would raise that for some discussion.
Should we take the Attorney General designee first, the issue, and then the senator and the House member? All right. Any other thoughts on the AG's designee being a voting or non-voting member?
Okay, well,
How does the AG's office feel about that?
I am not passionate about it. So do what you will. I can tell you when I did my research on ex officio, because it's an ex officio position, it's not time limited, and it's meant to bring the expertise to the commission or to the committee. However, I am not a legal advisor, so I'm struggling with what is my role. If not voting, I'm not supposed to be the legal advisor. Then what am I contributing?
And instead they're spending money on horses.
All right. I will add a practical
Excuse me, on a different issue. Can we silence Mr. Ash? I'm listening to that conversation, and this is a very technical conversation, and it's difficult to concentrate on both.
Yeah. Ambassador Ash, did you hear that request?
Well, in the 50s,
We don't have the authority to. Can we mute him? All right, we're going to try to mute him.
Just send him a message that he needs to mute it when he's offline, so I can hear you all.
He's living his life.
Well, I mean, you'll never get him, but you'll have to get a new horse. What do you?
What we're going to hear.
He has been muted.
Continue. I don't want to stop
All
the
right, thank you.
conversation.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm being distorted because I can't follow it all.
So my point was, if I exist, if I'm on the committee, and also Rachel is here as the legal advisor, what is my role if I'm not voting? That was my only point.
I will add, what I was going to add is a practical consideration is the Open Meetings Act it says the committee shall meet with a majority of the members present once a year, or a quorum physically present once a year. Having the Attorney General on means we have met because we have 7 members present here today. If we don't, 7 members present here today. If we don't have the Attorney General as part of our quorum, then we're going to possibly be in violation of the statute. Now, what happens if you're in violation of the statute? If you don't meet 2 years in a row, you have to report to the General Assembly why you didn't meet. What happens if that? I don't know. What they do about it, I don't know. So I'll just throw that out as a practical matter as well.
I understand that concern, but I don't think we should let that influence making the right decision on whether or not those members are voting members. The Attorney General's office is the defense in open records case often, right? So it has a vested interest in the outcome, and that's the concern that arises for me.
So can we talk about, I heard you say that your concern is the potential conflict, but where do you see a conflict arising?
Attorney General's office is representing the state in open records cases often. So they are defending against people who are suing for open records, right? So simply put, they have a direct interest in one side or the other in an open records case. As a committee that's advocating for openness, that presents a conflict to me.
Any other? Ms. Hodge, did you have additional thoughts on that?
So I feel like that our representative from who is the designee for the AG's office will use her discretion and discernment to determine if we see that she should be a voting member, to determine whether or not there's a conflict or not. I think we've seen that already. We've heard her talk about that. I think looking at what our roles and responsibilities are, I don't inherently see a conflict in her being a voting member of this committee. If we look at what our statutory roles and responsibilities are.
I certainly agree if we're talking about the individual sitting at the table with us today, but we have to consider this in the sense of who it theoretically could be as well. And there are certainly circumstances in which you could have a representative of the Attorney General's office who was hostile to in the opinion of somebody who was suing, to that perspective. And we are supposed to be advocates for open government. Putting somebody that has a direct interest in the outcome of a decision seems to me the definition of a conflict.
I would just say that I'm one perspective, and I agree that we often have the perspective of defending a denial in that instance. However, there are many other perspectives representative from the press or from Coalition of Open Government, meaning their perspective is most often more open than deny. So I'm just saying, this is a commission or a committee. I would say that we do have opposing viewpoints, and that was kind of the point, to have different viewpoints represented here.
I think there are potential conflicts if there was a judgment ruled in Chancery Court against this commission. Determining whether to appeal it to the state Supreme Court or not is something we would make. But the AG's office might have a different opinion than this committee. And then they have a vested interest in the outcome, because let's say the judgment said this commission owed $100,000 due to a willful violation of the Open Meetings Act. I hope that never occurs, but I'm just saying there are situations where you have, in my mind, and members of the AG may disagree with everything I'm saying, but there is a potential conflict. The optics are terrible. Furthermore, Tennessee is unique among the 50 states in America where the AG is selected not by the people of Tennessee or the governor, but selected by the Supreme Court before whom he argues, or she. Someday there'll be a she.
At the beginning of this, we discussed the election of the co-chair, and because of the inherent balance in the way this committee was created. Unfortunately, the Attorney General is a member of the government, and if the Attorney General's representative is a voting member, then that peculiar balance of 7 government people and 7 people from the media and others of similar interests will be unbalanced. It would be 8 to 7. You know, I started out arguing that you should be voting. I think I've changed my mind.
To be clear, I will not be offended either way. This is why we were so careful to say, am I the legal advisor for this committee, or is there a separate legal advisor? And that's why we were very careful to get a separate legal advisor to distinguish between someone on the committee and someone advising the committee.
Well, unless there's anybody else who would like to add a perspective, I think since we're not voting on this today, I think we can probably move on. So anybody else wish to provide comment?
I'd like to
My
ask
my
General
only other
Schmetti
comment
what
is
what
that
he
I
thinks.
want to. My only other comment is that I want to listen to the legislative history on those the separation between the government members, the non-government members, the ex officio members, and we can all do that. It's all online.
That's a good point.
Because I will say, if the statute gives ex officio members the right to vote, the bylaws cannot take it away.
Correct. All right. So I think we have thought about that, and we can move on. And I would say that if it is determined that the AG's designee is going to be a voting member, and that's an if to be decided later, we could address General Lamberth's concern regarding 2B3 with an introductory clause of, unless a designee is authorized by statute or something like that, voting members are not permitted to name a designee to attend the meeting. So unless authorized by statute, voting members are not permitted to name a designee to attend the meeting in their place. Would that satisfy your concerns if
Yes.
you are?
Yes, if,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right, great. Back to section 2. Any other thoughts on section 2 of the proposed bylaws? All right, and I'm going to move on then to section 3. If somebody develops a question about section 2, happy to go back. But moving back to section 3, any comments, questions, concerns about the meetings? We'll start with 3A. 3 is a long section, so 3A, meetings. And again, 3A1 is straight from statute.
The co-chairs can only call on a meeting upon the request of a majority of the committee meetings?
No, we can't. We can call it if we want to. There was a statutory amendment this past time because both co-chairs had rolled off and there was nobody who legally could call a meeting.
That's right.
So Senator Briggs helped sponsor legislation to say that if that happens again, then a majority of the members can request the open record, then can request the meeting. So in section 2A2, the time and location shall be determined by the co-chairs or as otherwise provided the law, and that means that the majority of the members. But it also, the statute also says, it essentially says if we, the co-chairs refuse, y'all can override us.
Well, my personal opinion is the legal counsel should not be a voting member of any commission. They're not at UT, they're not at other places. They're there as legal counsel. And obviously, if the law is law, but as an individual citizen in Tennessee, I would encourage the legislature to remove any ambiguity and just make it clear the AG's office is our legal counsel and do not have a vote on the commission. Period.
Thank you. Any other comments on section 3B, quorum and voting? Moving to section 3B. Section 3C, the participation by electronic means is pretty much straight out of the Open Meetings Act. I don't think there's much discretion on that. Section 3D, public notice. We've asked online at least 7 calendar days prior to the meeting for the regular meetings. Special meetings can be called on shorter. This would address the issue that if a committee wanted us to promptly provide advice, we would want to be able to do that. So there's a shorter time mentioned there. Consistent with Robert's Rules of Order as well as Tennessee state law, anything on a special meeting needs to be confined to the notice. So we can't expand that. There's a little more flexibility in a regular meeting like this one. A regular notice meeting, we can vary a little bit from the script, but we still should try to comply with the spirit of the law and provide as much information about what we're going to discuss as possible. And I've gotten ahead of myself on 3E there.
And I'm sorry, I have another meeting as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you, General Lamberth. I appreciate that. Well, I think we've already gone through 3F on the minutes. And then pay particular attention to G as to what our duties and comments are. Again, I've tried to track the statute. I think I'm pretty consistent with what General Appelt provided. 3H talks about the annual report, and this is statutory, and you'll note that it's up to the co-chairs to prepare the annual report. That's not an open meeting issue because it's not an open meeting requirement that we create our report in public because it's not something that's voted on by the committee. So it is something that we are allowed to do by ourselves. And we're supposed to do that by March 1 of each year, which will be one of our next things to do. Because March will be here before we
And is that something you'll share with us, even though we're not privy to it?
Certainly. Yeah. I don't anticipate, not wanting to share it. I mean, because it's going to be a public document, so I'd want this committee to see it first.
And then we could comment on it if we had comments to make.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate we'll do a draft, circulate it to the committee, because again, it's not debating towards a decision that the committee has to vote on, so we can do that outside of an open meeting, but we would want to get that input. All right, and then as far as the officers go, 2 co-chairs and a secretary, and then if there are others, it allows the ability to have others if necessary. The terms, I believe, is statutory as well, but people can be reelected. But you also serve until your replacement is named, provided you can't serve beyond the end of your term of office. So we'll just need to be mindful that we make sure and elect the co-chair before I roll off, because I'm rolling off next year. So removals and vacancies, officers can be removed, but because it's statute, because we're created by statute, appointed by the comptroller, I don't think we can remove each other and vote each other off the island, so to speak. Then parliamentary authority, Robert's Rules of Order governs unless something is changed in the bylaws, and then 2/3 to amend the bylaws, and you got to have 2 readings. So
Is that 2/3 of the full body or 2/3 of those present and voting?
2/3 of the voting committee members present is what's proposed.
So today that would be 7 members, 10 people present.
Yes, I think that's right. If 10 people are present, 2/3 would be 10.
7.
Yes.
Just a question, when you were talking about the removing, you could remove officers.
Yes.
You can't remove
Yeah.
members. And then my second question is, in the group of in the grouping of people who are eligible to be a co-chair, does that include the ex officio members?
I can tell you that it wasn't intended to.
Yeah. No, I don't think an ex officio member can be a co-chair, because the statute says it identifies that the statutory scheme in 84602 has us all as appointed pursuant to items A through N, of A1, A through N, and then A2 says that A2 is the provision that appoints the legislators as well as the AG or designee, but who may be appointed or elected as co-chair under 603 is only those letters. So I think it's only the at-large, if that's the correct term. People, do you read that? That's correct, General? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion of bylaws? If none, please give additional thought to what's in there. And if you think anything's missing, I know it's always harder for me to find what's missing than what's not in there. And then pay particular attention to the ex officio members as we discussed. And hopefully we'll have the perspective of at least one of our legislators next time around. I know they are busy, though. On that. Okay. So suggestion of topics for future meetings is our next agenda item. Bylaws would be one of them, but does anybody else have any suggestions for future meetings? Topics, as it.
One of the things you discussed today was conflict of interest policy.
Yeah. we could discuss that further. If people have thoughts on a conflicts of interest policy that they want to bring forward, that sounds like a good discussion about whether we need one, and if you got any thoughts on it.
It seems logical that we should have one.
Seems like a good thing to do. Okay.
I would suggest that we all have inherent conflicts of interest, and we're almost, such a policy will be a mess to fool with.
Might be. Yeah, but I point well taken about the conflicts of interest. I mean, at least some people on this table, around this table, theoretically might sue my organization. So there is definitely a conflict on an Open Records or Public Records Act matter. So your point well taken, Mr. Haskell.
It still seems like we could identify some very clear conflicts, such as the one you just used as an example, if you're party to a suit, right? Although I guess that gets into the question about the AG's office and ex officio, but I think it warrants further discussion, if nothing else. We may be able to easily identify some very obvious conflicts that we ought to address.
Yes, definitely something to think about, something to move forward with, and to think about. But okay, anything else? All right, then I guess the next topic is scheduling the next meeting. You know, we have met our requirements to meet once a year.
Yay.
As I said before, I roll off in 26. So I'll need to double check. I think it's June of 26, but I'm not June 30, 26. I'm not positive on that. We will definitely need to have another meeting to elect a new co-chair, but and there was some discussion about whether we're going to meet quarterly, but we don't have a whole lot on our agenda to meet quarterly about. So I just throw that out there for what is the committee's will on when we should meet next.
Well, I think we should meet prior to you going off.
Definitely.
So we can clean up everything. So that would, I think it's June also, looking at our others. So I would think we'd start between June and May. And the other thing is, with that, if we meet after March, that you have a commitment to send us the draft of the report that has to be submitted, the annual report.
I would think we ought to meet before the 1st of March for two reasons. One, to look at the draft report, which will just say we met, frankly. But two, because the rhythms of the legislature are such that if there's going to be something they need for us to do, it should appear in our lap along about the 1st of March, because you're past the filing deadline for bills, the two committees involved. I mean, the reality of it is if they're presented with a bill that they're uncomfortable with and they're looking for somebody to have a position on it and potentially to put off their consideration till another year, that would be a time they would do that, would be sometime around the 1st of March.
Yeah. So sounding mid-February-ish would give, because again, the bill, remind me, Mr. The filing deadline is typically late January or early February. Am I correct about that? The bill filing deadline is typically around there?
Typically 6 weeks after the first day.
Yeah, and then they can always amend bills and amend them very broadly.
Well, I would suggest we meet, whatever month it is, we meet on Monday. The reason being, it's during the legislative session, they go into session Monday evenings. So if you want our two legislators there, it would be helpful to them to be a day when you know they'll be in Nashville, because they're on their way to the Monday start.
Yeah.
But I would suggest we meet 3 times a year Even if it's only 2 years, it would help me to set the two meeting dates now, not just 2 months out, because we make plans to do things, and it's hard to change, particularly if you booked a trip that has cancellation fees.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but if I know now that we'd be meeting, say, in February and July and September, what I've made those up, then and it'll be the first Monday or second Tuesday or whatever, I can plan around it.
what about looking at February 16th or 23rd, the Monday the 16th or Monday the 23rd? Because I think
if I may.
Ambassador Ash does have a good suggestion.
I think the 16th is okay. 23rd, I think the Tennessee Historical Commission, which I'm on, is meeting.
Mr. May, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just as a matter of logistics, Thursdays and Fridays during legislative session are the days this room is most likely to be open. And what were the days y'all are considering right now?
Monday the 16th or Monday the 23rd.
I know Mondays, generally the room is going to be booked in advance.
If you did a Monday, it would have to be between 2 and 4 o'clock. The room is booked at 4 on Monday, the 16th.
Okay.
Really, you probably need a little bit of time in between.
Okay.
And also, can we meet at 10 in the morning Central Standard Time? For those coming from East Tennessee, 9 means you're getting up.
I'm going to second that. It
Yeah,
gives us
that
just
makes
a
sense.
little bit more of a cushion.
Okay, so we're running into conflict. If we can't have the room on the 16th or 23rd until late in the afternoon, making it really difficult for those of you coming from Knoxville to get out of Nashville and get back home before bedtime. Thursdays and Fridays are going to potentially be a conflict for our legislative members.
A Thursday would not, by noon on Thursday, they've left, except at the end of the session. They generally meet Monday, Tuesday, or maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Thursdays, they'll meet at 8 or 9 in the morning, and by 10:30, they're adjourning to drive home to Knoxville or wherever. So I wouldn't worry about Thursday.
What about Thursday the 19th?
It's fine with me. I don't know about anyone else.
Okay. What about Thursday the 19th of February 2026 at 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time?
That works for me.
And this room is open then?
And this room is open? Great. Okay. All right. Well, then Thursday, 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Thursday, February 26th, at this room, in this room, unless the co-chairs just can take it on the road and decide that we can find another place and get comfortable that that other place can.
The other place could be here in Nashville. Now, what about setting a date in June or September?
Thursday, the 26th, just verifying. The 26th.
Correct. Thursday, the 26th, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern.
So it's no longer the 19th. It's on the 26th.
Wait.
Right.
Yes.
That's
Thursday, the 26th of February. Is that right?
That's cute.
2/26/26.
Okay.
We good on that? At 10 o'clock. Okay, great.
And what about after that?
When would the next time we meet? Because we're going to have a rollover. Again,
You're not going to be here.
I may not.
Well, even if you're not, unless you're replaced, you continue on here until you are replaced. We have a member of the State Museum Commission that's been on there for 3.5 years because neither speaker's appointed anyone. And his term expired 3.5 years ago.
Okay. All right. Well, do we want to set a time then in June or July?
Yeah, summer's a problem because
Summer is
everybody's
a
trying to
problem.
go somewhere. And to
Yeah, summer is a problem.
to the ambassador's point, I mean, for those who are taking cruises to Europe and things like that, you got to do that far in advance. I would almost think maybe we ought to just skip summer.
Fine, have it September. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to set a date.
Yeah.
You want to look at, again,
And by the way, you could do cruises in the U.S. on the Mississippi. Doesn't have to be Europe.
all right, we'll stick with 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time on what days are we looking at? In the
Most days.
Yeah, it should be, any day should be fine in the
any
fall.
day. What, so for the committee, does it matter on the day of the week? All right,
Well, it does matter when Labor Day is the 7th.
right.
And so for many people, that the week of the 1st is the last go round at the beach or something.
How about September 9, Monday, September 9?
Let's not put it up
Let's-
against the holiday.
Let's not
like
put it
that.
up against Labor Day. I'm looking at the week of the 14th. I've got,
September?
yeah, I've got board meetings the 17th and 18th. I could do the 14th or the 15th.
14's fine with me.
Monday, the 14th, we could have this room.
14th
We know
works
we
for me.
have a
15th is
place.
better.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jackson?
I just said the 15th is better
15th?
for
15th.
me, but I can
Yeah,
do if I
15th 's
have
fine.
to.
15th 's fine with me. Is
The room is booked on the 15th.
no room on the 15th.
We're room free. Okay.
All right.
Surely in the entire city of Nashville, there's more than one room available.
In this building, there are other rooms available.
What if we go to the following week?
Yeah. If you want to look at the week of the 21st. Okay.
The room is open all that week. Except for that Monday afternoon.
Okay. Preferences?
I can do it. I can do it the 21st. I can't do it after that. I'm on a trip.
Does Monday, the 21st work? It looks like it works for the co-chairs and the secretary. No objection from anybody else?
Monday, September 21, 10 a.m. Central Standard.
Right.
The correct time.
That'll be daylight then, Victor, but yes.
We'll just go Central Time. We'll avoid
Okay.
daylight and standard 10 o'clock Central Time. Okay. All right. Well, is there any other business to come before the
Do you need a
committee?
motion on that?
I think we can just declare it. We don't need to be doing another roll call vote on adjourning. I think we can do that one by unanimous consent unless there is an objection to.
Or we
To-
can just get
to
up
do
and
so.
leave and we won't have a quorum.
So I want to thank everybody for their work on this. I know that at this point it got to be a bit of a slog at times, but I think it's important work. And if we can get the bylaws done and the policy done, we now have a policy that we can get. I will make sure that the changes get done and sent to the comptroller so that can be posted on the website.
For
Mr.
the
Hanson?
record, I'd like to thank you for all the work you've made on this, particularly given the fact that you're going to leave us here with all this mess.
I'm trying to get it
Somebody
in
had
order
to do it.
before we leave. So, and I don't mean to, and Joel, Mr. Christopher, you're more than welcome to take over on this one, next one, but
I also want
Okay.
to express my gratitude.
Okay.
It's been extremely helpful. It's a well-run meeting.
well, thank you. I'm not sure I agree with that, but thank you. And thank you, everybody. Again, thank you to the comptroller's office for helping us here. And have a safe afternoon. And those of you here who are traveling, safe travels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.